Happy New Year, everyone! We are so happy to be here in the sacred land. We are preparing for ceremony. We are preparing for a new beginning. And yesterday we arrived and I was observing all these temples and so many beautiful things that it has been built and the intention of it and the beauty of this. And it is cold. And yet our hearts are warm and full of hope and ready for the new beginning. We have been talking for a while about what do you really want? And maybe you have your list for the new years. And how do you make that year happy for you? And this journey has been taking us into realizing a memory doesn't hurt. What it hurts is the emotional charge that you have in every single memory. And this is the time that you revisit those memories that happens and ask yourself, what do you learn? What do you really learn from that experience in your life? Because if you don't realize what you learn, you're going to be repeating the same experience over and over again. Does that experience make you feel powerless? Does that experience make you feel not appreciated? Or what is that part of those memories that you don't want to revisit because it makes you sad or makes you, instead of understanding what was the lesson of it? I'm here with Sristi in this time and space preparing for that ceremony, and we were talking about this morning and how it has much more load, the good experiences. We were talking about what we have learned in moon dance and what we have learned in the light ceremony and vision quest, in every single lesson in the school. So many beautiful things that we can learn. But when we tap into the other memories, the ones that you don't want to talk about it, the ones that you want to evade for a reason, and you go directly into it. Those we can put dark memories, dark, put it in quotes, and how do that light ceremonies and that light understanding and embracing can help those memories if you can only see what was the lesson of it. So, what do you think, Mijita, about it?
I think one of the challenges when it comes to, quote unquote dark memories is this overwhelming feeling of emotions that we want to suppress. And so the rush of those emotions that we've been suppressing, when that comes about, it's hard to detach from it and see what happened, because suddenly it's not just one memory that's being triggered, it's a lot of memories that are simultaneously being triggered. And sometimes it's situations involved, and oftentimes I think it's getting lost in the people and the situations, rather than even asking, okay, how do I feel, like what was my responsibility, and the tendencies to go in a victimization instead of relating with it in a different manner.
Well, it is true. And yesterday was kind of funny in the chat from the school, those lessons that we needed to bring forward. And people just pass through Christmas time. And don't you feel happy that it is over until the next year? And a lot has to do about family and how do you relate with the family and what is going on inside of you or why you give so much power away. One of the things that we were talking in the morning too, it was about Sristi asking me, I give my power away, thinking that love was in the outside. And even When you have said it many, many times, love is truly you. You are love. How do you relate with that teaching when suddenly you find yourself over and over and over again giving so much power to the outside world? Does this person love me? That it doesn't? Or what do I learn in those situations when I felt that love was absent because I decide that it was absent instead of understanding that memory and learning from it? What about if those situations in your life was created from your own higher self and it was a lesson? It was just that, a lesson that you didn't see it as a lesson. You didn't learn from it, so you repeated and repeated and repeated the same stuff over and over and over again. Where it is that love that you have always been, where it is this place within your own self that it is able to recognize the lesson. Does that memory that you don't want to go through it because it's charge of energy, charge of emotional body that it is involved in it, and it makes you sad or it makes you powerless, or you think that you need to forgive that person when it is not that person that you need to forgive, but yourself for not recognizing this as a lesson. Many people in your life that they were not there to support you, maybe. And how do you respond to it? Can you support yourself? Can you see that lesson of where it is those parts that you're not recognizing within your own self and understand that really the memory doesn't hurt you? It is the emotional body, the one that it keeps you trapped in this thing because you didn't learn the lesson. So you repeat it and repeat it year after year after year. And then just Happy New Year, it just turned into a phrase without saying, how do you make this year happy for you? How do you bring your power back? We do need to say it again. You were programmed to think that the dark things in your life have more power than the light things. How do you relate with this when we talk about it in the morning, Mijita? What do you feel about it?
Well, I think the identification is stronger with emotions that have to do with sadness, disappointment, pain, especially. And I was trying to figure out, okay, what is the precise moment and what is the why is there a stronger tendency to identify with pain instead of something that I've learned about myself that doesn't come from that particular memory, and that it creates a little bit of a struggle to transmute that memory.
Yeah. And you can see this in the system too, because the system, even if you go to the news, is always bad news.
Yeah, never good.
It's never good. It is always the bad news because it is being designed to trigger an emotional body that creates fear. Fear for you. Because if you have fear, you're completely manipulable and controllable. And the system have access to your emotional body unless you change it. Because it doesn't really until you give permission for that one. So how do we move this? Where it is that door that you allow the massive consciousness get into you and begin to think only the bad guys win. And here comes another story, and again, the guys win. And it is not true because first you have nothing to do with it. It is up to you to see the memories that you have that it make you feel in certain ways and being able to learn the lesson and make this lesson about that love that you have always been. I see love everywhere, even in the darkness places. I can see this. And and it has been tough for me to pass this message to the people. Are you going to believe me? Are you going to understand me? Can we see beyond the pain? Can we understand the pain and learn the lesson instead of being hooked into that memory and recreate it until we learn the lesson? What is it? What's going on in the families? What's happening truly in those families that in some way or another it is not working properly, or maybe it is a dysfunctional family, or maybe it is functional in many other ways because you choose it, and you choose it as a lesson that you needed to learn, something that you can use as a stepping stone. But yet, we are the ones who give power away to a memory. And it can be that memory in the future. It can be that memory in the past. But you still will put the same thing over and over again. Even when you see from the future back, you're based it on that memory. Do you see what I mean? Instead of changing the story. Because whatever it happens in that memory, and you didn't give the lesson, you just repeating the same lesson over and over again with different people, when you didn't realize that it was up to you to see what is going on. What do you feel, Mijita, about this?
Well, I think that's very true, and I was also thinking sometimes it's the memories get blurrier, and I was actually questioning, especially the memories that are traumatic and you don't want to remember and you've suppressed it for so long. And I think that's part of the problem in the network inside the brain, where if you can't even see fully what happened and uncover, I mean, how will you find the lesson? And finding the lesson is I feel also difficult in a certain memory.
Yes, and I was thinking about in this moment of how the patriarchal system has so much power over you. You know that there were some of the traditions when somebody was being named a knight, and they go into their knees, and that sword was going from one side to another, and then it was the title and the decree of how that young man has turned into a knight. And after the ceremony, they slap them and they go, so you can remember this moment. What is that about? So you have all these light, beautiful teachings coming forward in you. You are able to conceive yourself and raise your consciousness and raise your frequency range. You suddenly are able to understand such a deep truth, and somebody create that ladder for you in order to get in there, and then it can be just an hour you go back to that lower self because you couldn't see or relate with something within your own self to keep you into that high mode. Where do this come from? It's kind of funny. Srishti had these incredible skills and ability to write it down, everything that I say. And it is beautiful to see how this is working for everybody else. So one of the things that we were noticing is questions and answers that there are in the school or in ceremonies, that people come and ask the question, and here comes the one that created you and answer that question. We begin to notice that that question was repetitive. Just wait a little bit, and that question is going to come back from the same person. And the person is thinking, I didn't make this question before. They have kind of like amnesia about it. What happened? And what is this about? That file of questions and answers right now is available for everyone in the school. And it is a huge file and still is growing about it of questions and answers. And what is the question that you ask to the Spirit, to the Great Mother? And the Great Mother teach you an answer and then you forgot. You didn't apply it. You forgot to apply it. Or the only way that you think that you can apply it is through pain. Or you will remember more the pain situations of your memories in your mind instead of something that it was so amazing, beautiful to understand, so beautiful to realize. The situation is, can you get the lesson of every single memory? Because that lesson, it comes directly to making a ladder or the elevator to see it in a higher perspective. What do you truly learn from it? So let's say a memory that you find it sad memory. Do you find it sad memory or you label it sad? That memory, and that goes to your big bag of sad stories. Or can you see it without the sad part of it and learn from it? Like, what does this make you feel? Does it make you feel misunderstood? Does it make you feel lost in the unknown? Does it make you feel powerless? Does it make you feel that you don't have what it takes? Does it make you feel what? Talk to me about it.
I think all of the above. Honestly, especially when it comes to, traumatic memories that and when I observe, well, first I think just for you to even say, can you learn the lesson and focus in the lesson and not just quickly label it in a sad bag and relate it with that. I think that's a new concept to begin with, because like the natural tendency for me is, okay, this happened and I feel sad and I go with the feelings, and here we go again, and it's the same experience repeated. But I think I've never really thought and detached and see it and go deeper, beyond the sadness, disappointments, and beyond the tendency, because some of the memories I was pulling up, the emotional tendency is to say, oh well, you know I learned to do this, or I didn't learn this, or I learned to feel more like shit,
Yeah.
just saying that. But that doesn't really solve anything. Saying statements like that. So I think there is an art to finding the lesson.
Yeah. Where you're giving your power away. I mean, when you are able to realize what is it that you're giving your power away and why it creates an identity that the next person, you set it up to have the same lesson over and over again because you didn't learn the first time.
So is that right there? Can you expand how, for example, we could set something up? Because that right there, I feel like is such a responsible thing, because it goes back to me and saying, okay, I'm the one that's setting it up. It's not someone else's fault, because that's the tendency of just going to the victimization. And we're breaking that
Yeah,
idea right here and right now by saying this.
absolutely. We have an old saying in Mexico. Te pusiste de pechito means it is like a slang about it. I'm trying to translate. Means you put yourself, you do set up this just to have the same lesson. It's very prevalent, and you can see it in the chats and the questions of the people. What about the men? So you have a bad experience, a broken heart with one man, and then you begin to think all the men are the same. instead of what was the lesson about this? What is that lesson? Where it is that part of you that you wanted something different. You wanted not to be brokenhearted, and getting the lesson of why you choose to have that lesson. And then you repeat the same lesson over and over again because that is very prevalent in the women, choosing the same men over and over and over again, not realizing it at the first time, oh my gosh, I have been dating the same men over and over again, thinking that the next picture is going to change, the movie that you're seeing it, having the same effects, the same situations, different faces and maybe different names, but here we go again in the same thing instead of realizing it where I was. What is my lesson that I have learned about this? You know, and how does it feels? And it has to do with that emotional body. It has to do with this place within your own self that immediately it is connecting all these bags that you have of setups. Does it goes to one bag or it goes to another bag instead of seeing it that all the relations are really inside of you and they are there to teach you a lesson. A lesson that if you learn it, you don't need to repeat it. What is that part? And it's still love because you are love. And you do need to understand and embrace that truth that you have always been love. You don't need to be begging for love. Every time that you beg for love, you're going to be disappointed. That's the setup that you do. Can you see it?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
I think it goes back to really recognizing and actually, you know what, I'm remembering this one saying that you said one time, and how one day of your life can be the ultimate day because you could experience something in that one day that you create for the rest of your life, or a belief that you create or can be created. And I think it also really to go more deeper and see what happened, because why certain experiences even came about, and there's similarities. And what I observe is also, it's like you have all these different experiences that are happening also in the decisions and in the interactions that you're making. And I've gone back and thought, okay, I worked on this belief already, but there's more to it. I didn't dig deeper enough. So I think that's part of the thing of, okay, if I have a wrong belief, how did that get installed? Why I chose to accept it in the first place, and where I'm acting on it, where am I using that over and over?
Or it make you feel like a victim. And being a victim, you don't need to be responsible. Can you see this part within yourself? And when you feel like a victim, he make me do it. That person make me feel this way. Therefore, it was a bad situation. In some way, instead of saying it, what is the lesson that I learned from it? How do I set it up for myself? How do I can see those parts within my own self? How can I be in there and repeat the same lesson over and over again instead of realizing it? What's going on? What about the memories since you were a little girl? And those memories taught you in some way or another. How was going to be the rest of your life? And you didn't put like a expiration date, or nobody said you need to learn the lessons. You have the power. Nobody told you this because the ways of the feminine was not known. Nobody told you you are love. And everything is love and you need to learn. So you have been dishonored, you have been unrespected, you have been abandoned, you have been hurt in every single possible way. You have been everything. You have been high. You have been understanding that higher perception of yourself. You recognize, you have the experience of recognizing yourself as the daughter of the Great Mother. You have recognized your own power and incredible ability to see yourself in a different manner. I mean, you have been everywhere. You have become love. You have been blooming. You have been dying and come back again. Every time you have been absolutely everything. You have been the wind. You have been the earth, the water. You have been absolutely everything if you learn it as a lesson. How do you think about that?
Well, that's something very different. And that is very, very true. And I don't know why I haven't put it together. And I think it's this thing that you're saying, to see it as a lesson. And I haven't actually quite seen memories as a lesson. I think memories so far has been just identities, more or less. So I think, these teachings that you're bringing is really about rearranging the almost the memories, even as you're saying it, a different perspective.
Yeah. So when you are able to understand the lessons, it's beautiful. It's beautiful because the one is contained in the whole, and the whole is contained in the one, mijita chula. So even in the disappointments, in there, in that space, even in the despair and in that sadness, if you can face that truth of how do you learn from it, it connects you directly to your own liberation. When you face this part and say, I learned this and it made me feel this, so I don't need to repeat the same lesson. Well, I am so happy. Here goes another year. We hold every week this radio talk. We hold absolutely, we have already so many years that in the radio talk, and so big is the archives of this. And we weave it together. Today, we make ceremony. Today, we see a higher truth about ourselves and learn from every single lesson so we can have truly a happy new year. I welcome everybody to the school online that we have. We work so much in understanding so many of the truths that the mother is coming forward and showing us the way. And this is a biggie for everyone because it is breaking those identities that in some way or another you have been reacting about it. I telling you, there is an app that it is very, very beautiful, very perfect in synchronicity. It is called Messages from the Great Mother, and you can find it in your phone. And you're going to feel this. There is the divine masculine also coming for ceremony, and that makes us feel so happy too that the weaving of the masculine and the feminine, it is happening as we speak. I love you all so, so much. I am you. And what?
That website.
Yes, oh, yes. My website is magdalas.com. That is magdalas.com. Send us a message. Let us know where are you. Let us touch that heart of yours and join us in this beautiful adventure of 2019. I am you. I am Magdala. Tlatzocomate, tlatzocomate, tlatzocomate.